Whenever you're mixing, you should be thinking about the placement of each element within the mix. And the most obvious way that we do that is with panning. But equally important to the stereo placement is the front to back placement. Pros have a bunch of techniques to push an element back in the mix or to pull it forward. And so in this video, I'm going to share a really effective way to do this. It's a great technique to use when you want to push an element further away, but you don't want to just turn it down and risk it getting lost or buried in the mix. I'll break it down step by step and make it easy to follow along so you can try this in your next session. Let's get started. Take a listen to this mix I'm working on. You're going to notice how the pianos and the pluck synth are all fighting for space up at the front of the mix. And there's not a lot of front to back depth. So you can hear how the pianos and the pluck synth, they just sound right up front in the mix. There's no depth to them. And so we need to push these back enough to just kind of place them right behind the vocal, which is what we really want to be the most forward element. So in order to understand how to push something back in the mix, we first need to understand what it naturally sounds like when something is far away from us versus very close. And there's three key indicators. The obvious one is volume. The further something is away from us, the quieter it will sound. And this is one way we can push something back in the mix. We can turn the faders down, make it sound quieter, and therefore make it sound a bit further away. Now, the problem with that in a mix like this, or most modern mixes, is that we risk burying the piano in the track. There's a lot of other elements happening. We kind of want everything to feel high energy and up close to the listener. We just want to nudge it back a little bit. So sometimes volume isn't the best way to do that. Now, a second difference in a sound that's far away versus up close is the tone. Now, generally speaking, a sound that is further away from us is going to have a darker tone to it. It's going to have less high frequencies. And a sound that's closer to us is going to have more high frequencies. Now, we can also use that in our mixing. If we wanted to push something back in the mix, we can darken the tone a little bit. But on this particular part, I don't necessarily want to start messing around with the tone of the piano. I like how crisp and plucky it sounds, so I want to look for another way to kind of place it right behind the vocal. And that brings us to our third key indicator of distance, which is the space that we hear around the sound. Now, when a sound is very far away, it has more opportunity to bounce around the room and bounce off all the surfaces before it gets to the listener. And so we hear more of the room when a sound is further away than when it's close to us, even if we're in the same physical space. So in other words, a sound with more reverb will generally sound further away than a sound with less reverb. So now that we understand those three key differences, let's use that information to push these pianos back in the mix a little bit. So I've created a group of these pianos and I'm going to load Supernova on this group. And we're going to use 2 out of the 3 techniques in order to push this sound back. We can do it all within Supernova and it's really easy. The first obvious technique we're going to use is applying some reverb. Now, I don't want a ton of crazy long reverb here. I just want a natural, realistic sounding room reverb. And that's where these room algorithms really come in handy. These sound incredibly natural, incredibly lifelike, especially when we use a realistically short reverb time. So take a listen to this piano as we bypass and unbypass the reverb. So I love how that sounds on this piano. It sounds like a very realistic room, but now we can adjust it and tweak it a little bit more, especially with this depth knob. This is going to bring the piano forward as we have less depth. So this is going to make it sound like the piano is closer to us as a listener. So that sounds really nice and even more natural now because it sounds like the piano is closer to us, kind of in the middle of the room, rather than being all the way on the other side of the room, which is what it sounds like at full depth. And now we're just going to blend the dry wet a little bit until we get a nice balance. So listen as we bypass and unbypass Supernova, how it just sounds like the piano steps back even when we have it soloed. It just sounds like it's further away now. Now, a lot of that is the fact that we're applying this very realistic sounding room, but we're also getting a little bit of a darker tonal quality to the piano as well. And that's also coming from the room models in Supernova. They're already applying this very realistic sounding room timbre, which is helping the sound feel a bit further away. It's not just the fact that we have a reverb tail on it, it's the fact that we're also altering the tone. And all of that works together to make it sound even more real. Now, of course, we can manipulate the tone even further with these color knobs. And these knobs are actually adjusting the tonal character of whatever algorithm we have selected. And they're doing it in a much more natural way than just applying an EQ to it. It's actually adjusting the tone within the algorithm. So we go from a darker, damper sounding room to a much brighter, more reflective high end here with just this single color knob. So I like it a little darker. We might want to also warm up some of the low end. Let's take a listen to that. So if you're listening on a good system or good headphones, you're gonna really hear those low frequencies start to feel much more forward when we push this low color knob up. So I like how this is feeling. We might also wanna use a little less pre-delay, something a little more realistic, like maybe a 4 millisecond pre-delay. So I love what this sounds like. I'm also going to copy it over to the pluck synth as well. And let's listen before and after in the context of the mix. So you can really hear how this pushes it back really far in the mix. Now I might want to tweak this a little bit to dial in exactly how much of that effect we want, because I don't think we need quite that much being pushed back. So I might lessen the mix knob on this a little bit. So you can really hear how it's almost like we're focusing a camera. When we have Supernova off, that piano is super in focus. It's up front in the mix, but actually we want to just adjust that a little bit so it's a little blurrier, a little further in the background, and we keep that vocal as the most important central element of this mix. Using Supernova like this is just an easy way to kind of push a sound back without making it sound extremely reverberant. And of course, the reason why we do any of this is to give our mix more front to back depth. This is going to make it sound deeper and more immersive. Take one more listen before and after Supernova on the piano and the pluck synth. You're going to notice how when we turn it on, all of a sudden the vocal locks in place up front and the piano sits right behind it. So keep this in mind next time you need to push an element further back in your mix. Remember, the volume, the tone, and the amount of reverb is going to determine how far away that sound is. It's going to help you get deeper front to back depth in your mix. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe for more tutorials like this, and as always, happy mixing.